Hello and welcome to the chesscreator.com YouTube video channel. In today's video I'd like to continue with my series of lectures on the London system. This game shows one of the most aggressive lines for white, which occurs if black castles early, plays h6 and plays somewhat passively. This game comes from a 5-minute online blitz game that I played recently, and I'm just going to run through the game pretty quickly, mentioning a couple of the key points. If you'd like to run your own engine analysis, or you spot better moves or better options for white, please feel free to send comments or questions. Just be polite, and that way everyone can learn. In the meantime, I'm going to run through the opening moves pretty quickly. If you'd like to remind yourself what the London system is, or you're stumbling on this video for the first time, then this is one of a series of lectures, and the earlier lectures go through different specific themes and points, including games from Garry Kasparov and an introduction video which goes through some of the basic themes and concepts. So for those of you that are familiar with the system, the opening few moves should be familiar by now. d4, d5, bishop f4, c5, c3, e6, e3, knight c6, bishop d3. And here we can see the familiar position for the light squared and dark squared bishops for white. These tend to get developed to f4 and d3. This game continues. Knight f6, knight bd2, bishop e7, h3. Now, h3 is a common move in the London system. It basically allows white to maintain their dark square bishop on the h2, b8 diagonal after black plays knight h5. This game continues. h6. Now h6 is an unnecessary move here because the bishop was unknighted to go to g5, and this actually presents an opportunity for white in some lines where white can sacrifice the dark square bishop to basically rip open the kingside, and we actually see this in this very aggressive line within the London system. Those of you that have seen my earlier videos will know that many times the London system is written off as being dull and passive and without any aggression whatsoever. Well, after you see this game, hopefully you'll change your mind. The game continued as follows. Black castles. Now here black has obviously shown his hand early, he's castled kingside, but white is in no hurry to castle kingside. He can retain the option to castle queenside or just tuck the king away on e2. As you'll see in this game, you can see the advantages of not castling because it allows for g4, an instant attack on black's castled position. Here my opponent seems to be oblivious to the danger and decides to play on the queen side with a6, and I move my rook over to the g file, signalling that I'm not going to castle kingside. Game continued. b6, h4, knight e4. Now at this point I can obviously capture the knight and win a pawn, but what I really wanted to do was continue with momentum on the kingside attack by playing g5, really threatening to rip open the kingside, which to me was more important than grabbing a pawn. And here black's position starts to fall apart with the rather unusual move h5. Obviously this pawn on h5 is unprotected, and should I move the knight from f3 to e5, for example, then my queen on d1 can munch this pawn without any problems whatsoever. So this game continues. Decide to grab the pawn now. Black recaptures, bishop recaptures, and I've won a pawn. But again, that's not really the point. In capturing the pawn, I'm also threatening the knight, which has to be protected. And if you look at the position of my pieces, I have all my minor pieces bearing down on black's king. I have a rook positioned on the g-file, and there's absolutely no counterplay, no threats from black. So this game continued with bishop b7, and I play knight to e5. If you look at the knight, it's actually really pinned to the bishop on b7. If the knight captures on e5, then I can capture with tempo, because once I capture the bishop on b7, I would be threatening to capture the rook. So the knight is effectively pinned. Black does nothing to really alleviate this pin, because again, if the black knight captures on e5, I can capture the light square bishop on b7 with tempo, threatening the rook. So black is really not doing themselves any favours here. Sorry, one moment. So, yep, I gobble the pawn on h5, and now I have two major pieces, queen and rook, really bearing down on the black king position. And here, perhaps in a desperate bid, black plays f5, and of course once I capture the pawn en passant, I have a very clear mating threat. I also have my rook is now beautiful on the g-file. My king can hop onto e2 or d2 if needed, and I can swing the other rook into the attack. Clearly it's not needed here, because after bishop takes f6, it's queen h7 checkmate. So if you think the London system is dull and boring, this hopefully is an example of one particular line where if black is casual and castles early, with the addition of the unnecessary h6 move, then there is definitely an opportunity for an early g4, h4, g5 attack, stick the rook on the g-file, swing the queen across using the d1 to h5 diagonal, and it leads for a very, very aggressive game. So I hope this was useful. For those of you that have been following my series on the London videos, I hope this is another interesting episode for you to learn from. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them for me on YouTube. If you find better moves or alternatives, or you wish to engine check the analysis, then please just leave a comment, be polite and explain why you think your moves are better, and that way all of us can learn. In the meantime, if you found the video useful, please consider subscribing or liking the video, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks very much for your time.